everybody, welcome to Cheeseology. I'm Adam. In this video, we're going to be making Butterkase. Butterkase is a fabulous German cheese. The word Käse actually means cheese in German. Möchtest du etwas Käse? I know I do, so let's get cheese making. So for this cheese, we're going to be using 2 gallons of milk. I have just whole vitamin D milk from my store, pasteurized, so I'll be using calcium chloride as well. We're going to heat the milk up to 86 degrees, but first we're going to put a ½ teaspoon of calcium chloride in our pot, so when we put our milk in, it all mixes together, and then we'll heat it up. For this cheese, we're going to be using 2 different cultures. We're going to be using C201, and we're also going to be using a buttermilk culture. In addition, we're going to be using Geotrichum Candidum. Once we get up to 86 degrees, we're going to be putting in the ingredients that I just showed you. I'm using an electric burner here, so I'll take it off the heat, or else it'll continue to still rise. From there, what we want to do is keep it about that 86 degrees for 45 to 60 minutes, so the cultures can start doing their thing, and then we'll go to the next step. All right, we're at 80 degrees. We have 6 more degrees to go, and then I'll add the C201 Buttermilk culture and also the Geotrichum Candidum. A little bit about the 2 cultures that we'll be using, C201 and Buttermilk culture. They're a mesophilic and also thermophilic culture. Thermophilic cultures like warmer temperatures, and mesophilic cultures like cooler temperatures. You'll see as we go through this process, we're going to be raising the temperature above 100 degrees. That's because we're using also the thermophilic culture, the C201. But we'll get to all of that here shortly. Have a few more minutes, about 80 degrees, and once we hit 86, we will add our cultures and the Geotrichum Candidum. Okay, we've hit 86 degrees. I'm going to take my pot off my heat source, and I'm going to add my 2 cultures and the Geotrichum Candidum. All you want to do is just sprinkle this along the top, and then you want to give it about 2 minutes to rehydrate, or else it could clump up when you stir it. So I'm just putting the pack of C201 in right now, buttermilk culture, and then 1/64 of a teaspoon of the Geotrichum Candidum. All right, now what I'll do is wait 2 minutes, then I will stir it up real good. You want to stir it slowly, not just in a circular motion, but up and down, so it all gets mixed in thoroughly, but we'll just let that rehydrate for a minute, and then we'll do that. I'm going to slowly stir in the cultures. And what we want to do is we want to keep this as close to 86 degrees as possible. After you're done stirring, you want to put a lid on it, wrap it with a towel or something, and then we'll let it sit for 45 to 60 minutes. I'll probably wait the whole 60 minutes just so the cultures have plenty of time to do their thing, and we'll come back then. Okay, after I let the milk set for 60 minutes with the cultures and the Geotrichum Candidum in there, I heated it back up to 104 degrees slowly. Once we reached 104 degrees, I took it off, and then we added our rennet. We want to use 2.25 milliliters, or just under a ½ teaspoon of rennet. Mix it in real well, and then you're going to want to let this sit for probably only about 25 minutes. Because of the higher temperature, the rennet will work faster. So we'll come back in 25 minutes, and then we will see if we have a clean break. We should. It should be almost, the curd should be pretty firm, and then we'll continue from there. All right, our curd has been sitting now for 25 minutes. Now what we want to do is cut the curd. We want to make a series of vertical and horizontal slices about 5/8 of an inch apart. And then once we do that, we want to let the curd rest. What this does, it actually heals the cuts that we're making in the individual pieces of the sides of the curds. So let's cut your curd now. You should see some separation a little bit from the curd to the side of your pot. That's a good indication that you have a good coagulated curd, that the rennet did its job. So right now I'm just cutting, and then we will let it rest for a few minutes. Okay, we're going to let this sit, and then when we come back, we will start stirring. Because we've already heated it up to 104 degrees, There's no need to put it back on the heat. What we're going to do is we're going to start stirring the curd, but I'll go into those steps here in just a moment. Okay, now that we've let our curds sit for about 5 minutes after we cut them, what we want to do now is over about 15 to 30 minutes, we want to let the curds firm up, and we don't want to stir a whole lot. We just want to stir it up a few times, maybe every 3 to 5 minutes, just to keep them from matting. This is not a continuous stir on this cheese at this point. The final curds, when you put it in your palm and you put your thumb against it, it shouldn't break into individual pieces, but it should kind of break apart somewhat. It shouldn't just be mush. So somewhere right in the middle between kind of real soft and saturated to firm and breaking it into individual pieces. So somewhere right there in the middle. So what we want to do is I'm just going to stir this just a little bit to kick up to break up the curd mass. And I'll come back every 5 minutes and just give it another turn for about a half an hour. From there, then we're ready to form our cheese. I'm using a medium size hard cheese mold. We're not going to be pressing this. We'll be putting a little bit of weight, only about 5 pounds on this for about an hour. But besides that, this cheese won't get any other weight on it to press. After we're done pressing, we need to keep the cheese warm for several hours, probably about 5 to 6 hours, 80 to 85 degrees. That's to let the acid still develop in the cheese. From there, later on, after that's all done, we will put the formed cheese into a brine solution. That's going to be 2.25 pounds of salt, 1 gallon of water, a teaspoon of white distilled vinegar, and then a tablespoon of calcium chloride. So for right now, we're just going to let this sit, come back every, like I said, 3 to 5 minutes, give it a turn, and then after about a half an hour, we will start forming the cheese. Our curd has been sitting a half an hour. We've stirred it every few minutes, like I explained. Now what we want to do is let the curd settle back down to the bottom, and then we want to remove whey to about 1 inch above that curd. So we want to get rid of that whey, and then what we'll do from there is we'll put it in our form.
Yeah.
All right, I've got about 1/4 gallon out. Now what I'm going to do, I'm starting to get a little bit of curd in my cup here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start scooping it into our form. Okay, now that we've transferred our curd, we'll fold this the cheesecloth over. I'll put the follower on, and I'll just put 5 pounds of weight on it for an hour. For the next 5 to 6 hours, we have to keep this at about 80 to 90 degrees. We're still converting lactose into lactic acid. So it has to be kept warm so the bacteria can keep that conversion going. For the first 3 to 4 hours, though, we want to flip this about every 30 minutes. We're not pressing a lot of weight on this, so we want to make sure we're getting good consolidation. So by flipping this, we'll get that. So 5 to 6 hours, 80 to 90 degrees. And then for the first 3 to 4 hours, you want to flip it every 30 minutes. So we'll come back at the end of the 5 to 6 hours, and then we'll go to our next step. Okay, our cheese has been sitting for about 6 hours. We flipped it about every 30 minutes for the first about 3 hours. Now what we want to do is we want to take it out, unwrap it, and it's not going to be a perfectly consolidated cheese like you would see with like a cheddar or like a Alpine tome or something like that. You're going to see little pockets in the side. That's because we didn't put a bunch of weight on it. We don't want to press this real hard. Now what we want to do, in my time, it is in the evening. Now what we want to do is we just want to let this set and kind of dry and cool overnight. In the morning, what we'll do is we'll put it in the brine. And I explained what the brine is previously, and we'll go from there. So we'll come back in the morning, we'll put it in the brine, and then I'll walk you through each step at that point. Okay, now we've let our cheese sit for about 5 to 6 hours. turning every about half an hour for the first 3 or 4 hours. Again, you can use a little bit of weight, about 5 pounds for the first hour, just to help consolidate it. But at the end of that 5 to 6 hours, we took it out. I made the brine solution that I already discussed, and I soaked it for 4 hours, 2 hours on each side, because it will float because it's salt water. 2 hours on each side in the brine solution. I took it out, and now I let it air dry, and it feels pretty dry to the touch. As you can see, we have a great, beautiful wheel of cheese. It's kind of bulging out a little bit on the sides, which is fine. This will be ready for your table in about 4 to 6 weeks, but if you want more character in the cheese, you can let it go longer. Perfectly fine. I'll probably let this go for about 8 weeks before I cut it. So that's Butterkase. Hope you learned something, hope you enjoyed the video, and happy cheese making.